Much like many other Corey flicks, Double O Kid starts off with some 90s bad guys, doing some 90s bad guy shit. At least, though, this time we get a cutting edge intro, high tech, and interactive. Check out how this piece stretches out for Bridget Nielsen and shrinks down for Wallace Shawn. Brilliant. Here, Corey Haim plays Lance, a 22-year-old, 17-year-old with killer blonde hair, who wants nothing more than to be a secret agent super spy and is taking part in this weird internship type program at the secret spy store or something, I don't know, all in hopes to one day join the team. There's quite the cast here. Karen Black, Wallace Shawn, John Rhys-Davies, Bridget Nielsen, and this marks the first team up with Haim and Nicole Eggert. We start to get some resemblance of a plot when we get to the mansion and Bridget Nielsen decides to take a dip in a hot tub wearing a ball gown. And the bizarre computer virus Bermuda Triangle evil plan is kind of revealed, I guess. Not that it matters, as evil Wallace Shawn does one of the most bizarre double crosses in history via an interactive card game. I think this interactive thing has something to do with the theme here. And, this is a 90s Corey Haim flick, so we get our first official 90s montage as Haim transports some sensitive paperwork. No matter what you do, it's all justified. You can spend 25 hours at a rock cafe. And he arrives just in time for the bad guy to notice the boom mic drop in a frame right here, and before they can get the keycard MacGuffin off this asshole, they realize he handed it off to Haim, while they were distracted by the boom mic. And the hunt is on. And Haim can finally put his super spy skills to work, like primitive text messaging. Haim was always ahead of the curve. But it's not long before they're on to his pretty blonde ass. But of course, he makes a fast getaway in the bad guy's limo. You see what I did there? And montage number 2. So the next morning, he finds himself surrounded by what I'm assuming are the East Coast chapter of the Roller Boys. So Haim makes a fast getaway too. Alright, I'll stop. I know that's not funny. And with the help of a fully clothed Nicole Eggert, he finally gets away. With the blonde hair and things like using a water gun and shit, Haim is kind of like a demented Dennis the Menace here. So naturally, gullible Nicole Eggert falls head over heels for him, and montage number 3. Look at this fly-ass motherfucker right here. Perfect date at the zoo attire. Which turns out to be a pretty shitty date, all things considered. Them's Haim's monkeys. So they get tracked to the zoo, and more wackiness ensues. And we also kind of learn that Haim's boss is in cahoots with these people. And Haim and Eggert fall right into their spookishly tall, ghoulish trap and take one right to the jugular. So now that they got these little bastards locked up finally, Wallace Shawn gets down to business and sorry, she freaks me out, man. Anyways, in classic bad guy fashion, Wallace Shawn spills the beans as far as the hows and whys of his evil plan. Inconceivable. Is this movie really trying to have some social commentary? Well, time to kill these little shits, and he attempts to do so by taking them to his game room, where Haim is forced to battle wits to save his life in one of those, cheap-ass interactive shot-on-video 90s games, which, being Haim, is pretty familiar with the format. Meanwhile, Eggert, who still has her clothes on, is kicking some ass. And while trying to foil the plan, Haim, decides to take a virtual chess break. And it all comes down to a game of wits between Haim and Wallace Shawn. Classic. So Haim wins, and the virus, in turn, infects everyone's shit. And much like every other Corey Haim movie in the 90s, we get a straight-to-video looking actioneer finale. Classic. And in a twist of fate, our escaped baddies fall victim to the very 90s technobabble, poorly rendered CG computer virus they intended to use to win chess games or something, I don't know. But, this makes the sequence pretty funny, as the budget for the helicopter crash was already spent on blonde hair dye. So the film just kind of wraps up. No harm, no foul. And the happy young couple walks off into the sunset. But without another dose of 90s computer animation, of course. As far as Corey Haim in the 90s goes, I can't really say this is among his best. I loved it as a kid, regardless of its flaws, and it makes for a fun watch nowadays. Unless you're a dick or something. And you can't help but feel that Haim wasn't all in on this one, as most of the supporting cast seems to be having more fun than he is. And the forced voiceovers in the beginning of the movie are kind of just forgotten and overlooked in favor of pointless montages. But there's no denying the charm drenched in cheese here, and I would go as far as saying that this is among the best Canadian productions Haim took part of in the 90s, as possibly the worst was to be released next, being the second of his films with Nicole Eggert. And remember how I said she kept her clothes on in Double O Kid? Well, stay tuned. It's a very Corey Christmas. The two Coreys in the 90s. We're gonna get through this. Please subscribe.